Hello everyone, my name is Tarvo. I'm a lecturer at Tallinn University of Technology. I have talked several integration solutions, including SOAP, for the past 10 years. Today I would like to talk about the future of message protocols. For decades, SOAP was the only choice, the only protocol. Few years ago, REST was added, and now I recommend to add GraphQL as well. Why GraphQL? I got this idea to use GraphQL when I look at the comparison between REST and GraphQL, and I recognized some features what I have seen in comparison between SOAP and REST, and there's weaknesses of SOAP was now strength of GraphQL. And I started to think maybe weaknesses of SOAP wasn't the weaknesses. Anyway, SOAP and GraphQL have more in common than SOAP and REST. And it gave me hope that the transition from SOAP to GraphQL is easier than transition to REST. On a slide, I pointed out the main similarities. They both, SOAP and GraphQL, are standardized. They use strong data typing. They have one endpoint. They use only post method. Next, I would like to introduce briefly the GraphQL. GraphQL is a data querying language for APIs. It's like SQL for databases. Actually, it's a little bit more. It's also manipulation language. All GraphQL services has a schema that which fully defines what type of data can be read or written to the service. It helps to minimize the number of requests, what is needed to get the data from the service. It's by letting users to define the fields in response, and it also allows to request multiple resources at once. Let me illustrate this GraphQL request by an example. On the left side is SOAP message, request message, and a similar message for GraphQL on the right side. I left out the SOAP header to save some space, but it contains metadata for X-road. Same data for GraphQL is divided between URL and HTTP headers. The operation name is ATC classificators by ID array, and it has two input parameters, input elements. The same SOAP body information is on the second line in GraphQL request, the longest line. The remaining lines a list of fields what we want to see in response. For SOAP, we don't have such kind of information because SOAP always returns all existing fields. Okay. Now I would like to move on to the main part of this presentation, the comparison between SOAP and GraphQL. Before experimenting with GraphQL and SOAP, we had to add GraphQL support to the X-Road. We also made a demo application based on one existing Estonian SOAP service. The demo application is implemented in 2 languages because we wanted that the results should be generalizable. We compared 3 services. First 2, SOAP and GraphQL services, are from our demo application. The third one, GraphQL adapter service, is generated automatically. I will explain it on the next slide. GraphQL adapter service is located into a security server. It's on the service provider side. It allows us to request SOAP service using GraphQL message. It automatically translates GraphQL messages to SOAP messages without additional effort from service provider or consumers. Okay. All demo applications use a repository pattern. In practice, this means that the whole logic of requesting data is encapsulated in separate methods, and both SOAP and SOAP service and GraphQL service use the same method. So the time differences, the response time differences cannot come from implementation of requesting data. And results. First, we measured response times. Here are results. Blue is for SOAP service, orange for adapter service, and green one for GraphQL service. We can see that the differences are small. SOAP and GraphQL are almost equal. Only adapter service is a little bit slower. It's because adapter service internally use SOAP service, and it needs some extra time to translate from SOAP to GraphQL and vice versa. The next results is also about response times, but on the previous slide we had results what we get using C# demo application, but now here we have used Java demo application. The absolute numbers are a little bit different, but the proportions are very similar. So We also measured response sizes. You can see that GraphQL and GraphQL adapter service responses are 2 times smaller than SOAP responses. It's mainly because the JSON is more compact than XML. Probably REST response is equal or in similar size like GraphQL. But we didn't measure the REST responses. Okay, now I would like to turn to the problem of transition. From one protocol to another. At the moment, we talk about transition from SOAP to REST or GraphQL. It's at least as important as choosing the protocol is a smooth transition from one protocol to another. We don't have to talk about transition if we have several services to transmit. But in case like in Estonia, we have more than 3,000 existing SOAP services. And it's not reasonable to rewrite them. So we have to find some solution. We also need clear message from to community. What comes next? What happens with old protocol if we add some new protocol? Can we use, for example, SOAP after 5 years, after 10 years? Can we create new services? I recommend to limit this to say it clearly what comes next, because otherwise we are producing this old protocol, and and if we want to replace it, it doesn't happen. One solution is use adapter services for existing, to get data from existing SOAP services. And basically we have 2 options. Implement adapters. We can implement internal adapters like we did with GraphQL. And we have also possibility to make external adapter like, for example, we have for REST. I recommend to use internal because it's we don't want to if you want a smooth transition from one protocol to another, when it's not good idea to force service providers or consumers to make extra work to use existing services. But it's up to you what to choose. In conclusion, we saw from experiments that in case where GraphQL selects all possible fields from service, then the times are quite similar, the response times. Probably if we reduce the amount of fields. It will be faster. But anyway, the main idea from my presentation is not the GraphQL. It's one possible way. It has some advantages over REST and SOAP. But the main idea from my slides should be smooth transition. What to achieve. Okay. Thank you.
Indeed, thank you to the audience for listening, and Tarvo, actually, thanks to you for this very detailed presentation already. When I started seeing the first slides, and I'm not super comfortable with coding lines, then I was a little scared. But we got the message through, and we also have questions not just for you, but we have also a question for the audience. Because the second activity of the day, the first, as I remind you, was the word cloud that we got in terms of what are the 3 words that you associated with Xroad. And now we have a second activity. So the second activity, you can find it right next to actually Tarvo's name, and it's a vote because we're in election season, let's say, and so we decided to do a little poll also with you from the audience as well, connecting today from everywhere in the world, and we're asking you a question, and the question is. We would like to hear your opinion on the subject of whether Xroad 7 should support GraphQL. So, for example, if you go on the WorkSup, you're already on the WorkSup platform, but if you go to the program section, then you will see that next to Tarvo's name and under the title of his presentation, there is a Vote Now button. So, if you click on the button, which is what I am doing right now, but you cannot see it, you can cast your vote, and you can say whether yes or no. It's a simple yes or no poll that we want to run. The answers are, of course, anonymous, but please give us your input in that sense, so that we can also get to know more about it, and we can also then actually discuss the results with Tarvo in the end. But Tarvo, before while we let the people express their opinion, and we gather the results. Let's get on to a couple of questions maybe that we received also from the audience during your presentation. So a very, very, very upvoted one that keeps getting upvoted actually. It's why is a separate GraphQL support needed when GraphQL services can already be implemented using the existing REST support? Feel free to go overboard with it. So feel free to just take the time you need.
Yeah, thank you. It's possible to implement GraphQL using existing REST support, but it's not the same. To use separate support gives us possibility to integrate it, for example, documentation, user rights. If you use existing REST support, you have to manage it somehow outside of Xroad. That's the main reason, and it's very unusual to describe GraphQL services using open APIs, what is used for REST services. Thank you.
Okay, but I hope you got the question answered, and if you didn't, just ask for more, because we do have time for the Q&A, and we also have time to actually go through most of the questions that we received. They're about 5 or 6, and the second most upvoted one, actually, maybe this is the third one is something that we can also draw as the conclusions, let's say, to your presentation, which is maybe there is not like a net yes or no answer, but is GraphQL in the end better than REST?
Yes and no. It depends on if we look some API what is small and optimized for you, then probably REST is better. When we have it's easier to implement and a little bit maybe faster. But if you have a bigger API and it's not optimized for you, it's a general one, then probably GraphQL is a better choice.
And actually, this is like the second most upvoted question, which is the one that I wanted to ask you before, and it's from the functional point of view. Do you envision GraphQL to complement SOAP and REST, or to replace it to core, let's say?
Yeah. In the future, it can be replacement, but I think that it's okay if we have several protocols supported, but we need at least one which have can aggregate all others. For example, if we choose GraphQL as one, then we can add SOAP to GraphQL adapter and REST to GraphQL adapter, and then somebody wants to use directly SOAP, it's okay. Then somebody wants to use REST directly, it's okay. And if somebody needs to combine all of them, then he can use GraphQL, for example.
But I think we have another question that is a bit connected to this last sentence that we are saying, which is that should we discourage people from using SOAP and nudge them instead to go for the REST or like GraphQL option?
Please repeat.
Like if we should discourage, like if we should basically tell people to not use or like use less SOAP as compared to before, and then go for REST and GraphQL.
If we think about transition and that SOAP is coming to be legacy, it's not a very good idea to produce more legacy. But using SOAP is not a problem if we have adapters. And yeah, basically, in my opinion, we can use SOAP forever, but we should not produce new SOAP services.
Okay. And I would ask you a couple of last questions that we can address very quickly, actually, with the minute or so that we have remaining. So, for example, one would be, first of all, which is faster, REST or GraphQL? Very quick one.
Probably REST, but I haven't measured it. Yeah.
Okay, and then the last one that I would ask you would be, what modifications would be necessary to Xroad for productized GraphQL support? Here I don't know what productized, what is meant, but probably you do. As REST support already provides limited support for GraphQL as well.
Yeah, we made a proof of concept and we added GraphQL support. And it was quite similar with REST support. The changes are in same scope or yeah.
Okay, Tarvo, thanks a lot for joining us today and for your presentation.
Thank you.
Then we have some minutes so that I can remind you not just to check the virtual expo booth, but because I also did it myself, and I saw like a very many names that I know of, and where you can find a lot of information. As I remind you, like to all the audience. No, first of all, we have something to discuss. Sorry, I almost forgot. We have the poll. So let's talk about the poll. Let's see what were the answers. So I'm going to check now the results, and the poll results are as it follows on the screen right behind you. So should X Road 7 support GraphQL? We had about 19 answers, good turnout. And okay, well, overwhelming majority says yes. What do you think about what do you think about the no answers then? Why would you think that they are?
I think they are happy with REST support and yeah.
But can that cause any problem, let's say, in like getting actually?
I don't think that adding GraphQL makes something worse.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So thanks a lot to Jonas for expressing yourself and for telling us what you think. Maybe this is also some material like for the support team of the X Road open source platform to address it. Tarvo, so thanks again.